The courtroom fell silent when Judge Hernandez spoke the impossible words, Michael Jordan's divorce settlement. In the back row, the basketball legend's face went pale. He had come to support a friend's custody battle, never expecting his deepest secret to be revealed. 28 years ago, Jordan and his ex-wife had created something revolutionary. A custody arrangement so innovative it was sealed from public record. Now, as two desperate parents fought over their children while a grandmother lay dying, that buried secret might be the only thing that could save another family from destruction. The gavel came down hard on Judge Patricia Hernandez's desk. The sound echoed through courtroom 302 like a gunshot. February snow pressed against the tall windows of the Cook County Courthouse, but inside the air burned with anger. "Your Honor, this is ridiculous," shouted the lawyer in the expensive gray suit. His name was David Walsh, and he represented Marcus Chen. "My client built Chef Connect from nothing. He deserves to keep his children here in Chicago where they belong." Across the aisle, attorney Sarah Mills shot to her feet. Her client, Isabella Rodriguez, sat perfectly still beside her, hands folded, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Judge Hernandez," Mills said, her voice sharp as a knife. "Ms. Rodriguez has every legal right to relocate with her minor children. Her mother is dying of cancer in Los Angeles. She needs family support during this impossible time." Back and forth they went. 3 days of the same arguments. 3 days of two people who once loved each other now using their children as weapons. Marcus Chen sat at the defendant's table, his black hair perfectly styled despite the chaos around him. At 38, he was worth over $200 million. His food delivery app connected hungry people with local restaurants in 47 states, but all his money and success meant nothing here. In this room, he was just another divorced dad fighting to see his kids. Isabella Rodriguez wiped her eyes with a tissue for the 100th time that morning. The celebrity chef with 3 restaurants and a hit TV show looked small in her navy blue dress. Her long black hair was pulled back tight, showing off the pearl earrings her grandmother had given her. Every few seconds, she glanced at the courtroom door like she wanted to run. The gallery was packed. Reporters from the Chicago Tribune, the Sun-Times, and even CNN filled the back rows. This wasn't just any custody case. When a tech billionaire and a celebrity chef fight over their kids, the whole city pays attention. But Judge Hernandez had seen enough rich people tear each other apart. In 15 years on the bench, she had watched too many children become casualties of their parents' wars. "Enough," she said quietly. The word cut through the shouting like a blade. Both lawyers stopped talking. The reporters stopped scribbling. Even the court stenographer looked up from her machine. Judge Hernandez stood slowly. She was 55 years old, barely 5 feet 4 inches tall, with gray streaks in her brown hair. But when Patricia Hernandez stood up, everyone in the room felt her power. "I have listened to this same argument for 3 days," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the courtroom. 3 days of lawyers talking about what's fair for the parents. But no one, not one person, has talked about what's fair for 8-year-old Sophia and 6-year-old Diego. She walked around her desk, something she rarely did. The room was so quiet you could hear the heating system humming. "Before we continue with this circus," Judge Hernandez said, looking directly at the packed gallery, "I want to address something that happened in this very courtroom 28 years ago. A divorce settlement that involved Michael Jordan." The silence became complete. Marcus Chen's mouth fell open. Isabella Rodriguez grabbed her lawyer's arm so hard, Sarah Mills winced. The court reporter's fingers froze over her keyboard. "Michael Jordan? What did the greatest basketball player in history have to do with a custody case in Mr. Jordan," Judge Hernandez said, her voice carrying across the stunned courtroom, "I know you're here today. Would you please stand?" Every head turned in slow motion. In the very back row, behind all the reporters and lawyers and curious onlookers, sat a man in a simple black suit and white shirt. No tie, no jewelry except a wedding ring. Michael Jordan. He looked exactly like he did in all those old Bulls games, but with gray at his temples and reading glasses perched on his nose. He had been sitting so quietly that most people hadn't even noticed the most famous athlete in Chicago history was in the room. For 10 long seconds, he didn't move. His dark eyes showed complete shock, like someone had just asked him to solve advanced calculus. His large hands gripped the wooden bench in front of him. "Your Honor," Jordan finally said, his famous voice shaking slightly. "I'm not sure what this has to do with everything," Judge Hernandez interrupted, her tone gentle but firm. "It has everything to do with what we're deciding today." Jordan rose slowly to his full 6'6" height. Even at 61 years old, he still commanded attention without trying. But right now, he looked like any other person who had been blindsided in public. "I came here to support my friend Marcus," Jordan said carefully, glancing toward the defendant's table. "I never expected to be part of these proceedings." Marcus turned completely around in his chair. Jordan had been like a father to him since 1999, when Marcus was a broke college kid working part-time at Jordan's restaurant. When Marcus wanted to start Chef Connect, Jordan was his first investor. When Marcus married Isabella, Jordan was his best man. But a divorce case? Marcus had no idea Jordan had ever been involved in family court. Isabella stared too, confusion replacing the sadness on her face. She had met Jordan maybe 5 times at Marcus's business parties. He seemed nice enough, but what could he possibly know about her situation? "Mr. Jordan," Judge Hernandez continued, stepping closer to the gallery. 28 years ago, you and your first wife created something remarkable in your divorce settlement. Something so innovative it was sealed from public record. Something that could help Mr. Chen and Rodriguez find a path forward. Jordan's face went pale. He sat back down heavily, like his legs couldn't support him anymore. "Your Honor, that was a private family matter. It was sealed for very good reasons." "I understand completely," the judge said, "but I was a young law clerk in this courthouse back then. I helped process those sealed documents. I've never forgotten what you and Carmen accomplished. And I believe it's time this court and this family learned from your example." She gestured toward Marcus and Isabella, who were both staring at Jordan like he had sprouted wings. "Ladies and gentlemen," Judge Hernandez announced to the packed courtroom, "we're going to take a 30-minute recess. When we return, Mr. Jordan is going to share the most innovative custody arrangement in Cook County history. An arrangement that just might save the Chen Rodriguez family." Her gavel came down once, sharp, final. Court is in recess. As people began standing and whispering and checking their phones, Jordan remained frozen in his seat. His head dropped into his hands. Marcus walked quickly to the back of the courtroom. Isabella close behind him despite their lawyers' protests. "MJ," Marcus said quietly, using the nickname only close friends were allowed. "What is she talking about? What custody arrangement?" Jordan looked up at his protege, then at Isabella, whose tears had stopped as curiosity took over. "Marcus," he said slowly, "there are parts of my life I never shared with you. Parts that might help you and Isabella figure this out, but they're going to be painful to hear." "What kind of parts?" Isabella asked, speaking directly to Jordan for the first time in months. Jordan glanced around the emptying courtroom, at the reporters still taking notes, at the lawyers huddled in urgent conversations. "Parts about what it really means to fight for your family," he said quietly, "and what it costs when you lose sight of what matters most." The three of them stood there in the echoing courtroom, surrounded by the weight of secrets that had been buried for nearly 3 decades. Outside, Chicago snow continued falling, blanketing the city in pristine white. Inside, 3 adults prepared to learn that sometimes the most important lessons come from the stories we're most afraid to tell. 3 weeks earlier, Marcus Chen sat alone in his penthouse apartment overlooking Lake Michigan. The view from the 47th floor was supposed to make him feel on top of the world. Tonight, it just made him feel small. His phone buzzed with another text from his lawyer. Another bill. Another court date. Another reminder that his life was falling apart in the most expensive way possible. The apartment was too quiet. Sophia and Diego were with Isabella for the week. Their laughter usually filled these rooms, but now Marcus heard only the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of Chicago traffic far below. He walked to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Nothing but leftover Chinese takeout and energy drinks. When Isabella lived here, the fridge was always full of fresh vegetables and homemade sauces. She used to cook dinner every night, even after filming her TV show all day. Now Marcus ate cereal for dinner and pretended it was fine. His phone rang. The caller ID made him smile for the first time in days. "MJ. Hey Marcus," came the familiar voice. "How you holding up?" Marcus sank into his leather couch, suddenly feeling like that 20-year-old college kid who used to wash dishes at Jordan's restaurant. Back then, Michael Jordan was just Mr. Jordan, the famous guy who sometimes came into the kitchen to check on things. Marcus never imagined they would become so close. "I'm not MJ," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "I'm really not holding up at all." Jordan was quiet for a moment. He had a gift for listening, something Marcus had always admired about him. "Tell me what happened today," Jordan said gently. Marcus took a deep breath. "Isabella's lawyer filed papers to move the kids to Los Angeles. She wants to take Sophia and Diego 3,000 miles away from me. She says it's because her mother is sick, but I think she just wants to hurt me." "Do you really believe that?" Jordan asked. "Because I've met Isabella. She doesn't seem like someone who would use her children to hurt their father." Marcus rubbed his eyes. He hadn't slept well in weeks. "I don't know what to believe anymore. When we were married, Isabella was my best friend. Now we can't even talk about what to have for the kids' lunch without it turning into a fight. What does she say about her mother?" "That Elena has pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctors in LA gave her maybe 6 months." Marcus's voice got softer. "The kids love their grandmother. Sophia has been learning to cook from her since she was 5. Diego calls her every Sunday to practice his Spanish." Jordan was quiet again. Marcus could picture him in his home office, probably wearing reading glasses and thinking carefully before he spoke. "Marcus," Jordan said finally, "what are you really afraid of?" The question hit Marcus like a punch to the stomach. He had been so focused on fighting Isabella that he hadn't really examined his own fears. "I'm afraid that if she takes them to LA, they'll forget about me,"
Marcus whispered. "I'm afraid they'll make new friends and new memories, and I'll become the guy they have to visit twice a month."
"I'm afraid that Isabella will meet someone new, and Sophia and Diego will call him Dad." His voice broke on the last word. These were the thoughts that kept him awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling of his empty bedroom. "You know," Jordan said slowly, "I went through something similar a long time ago. Different situation, but the same fear. The fear that the people you love most might slip away from you." Marcus sat up straighter. Jordan rarely talked about his personal life, especially his family.
"What happened?"
"It's a long story. But the point is, I learned something important. Fighting against someone you love never works. Fighting for someone you love, that's different. That changes everything." "What do you mean?" Jordan was quiet for so long that Marcus thought the call had dropped. Finally, he spoke again. "What if instead of fighting to keep Isabella from taking the kids, you figured out how to support her through this terrible time with her mother? What if you found a way to help instead of arguing?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "MJ, you don't understand. Isabella hates me right now. She blames me for our marriage failing. She thinks I cared more about Chef Connect than about our family." "Did you?" Another punch to the stomach. Marcus wanted to say no immediately, but the words stuck in his throat. "I worked a lot," he said instead. "Maybe too much, but I was building something for all of us. I wanted to give Sophia and Diego everything I never had growing up." "What did you never have growing up?" Marcus thought about his childhood in a small apartment in Chinatown. His parents worked 16-hour days at their restaurant. He came home to an empty house every day after school. Did homework alone, made his own dinner, went to bed without anyone checking on him. "I never had parents who were around," he admitted. "My mom and dad worked so hard to survive that they didn't have time for little league games or help with homework. I promised myself my kids would have different." But did they have different? Or did they have a father who worked 16-hour days building an app empire? The truth hurt worse than Marcus expected. When Sophia broke her arm last year, he had missed her emergency room visit because of a board meeting. When Diego won the school science fair, Marcus was in San Francisco meeting with investors. "I messed up," Marcus said quietly. "I became exactly what I said I wouldn't become." "Hey," Jordan said, his voice firm but kind. "Don't do that to yourself. You're not a bad father, Marcus. You just lost your way for a while. The question is, what are you going to do now?" Marcus looked out at Lake Michigan. The water was dark gray under the cloudy sky, matching his mood perfectly. "I don't know how to fix this. MJ, Isabella won't even look at me in court. Our lawyers do all the talking. How do I support someone who wants to take my children away?" "Maybe," Jordan said carefully, "she doesn't want to take them away. Maybe she's trying to save her mother and keep her family together at the same time. Maybe she's just as scared as you are. Marcus had never thought about it that way. In his mind, Isabella was the enemy trying to steal his children. But what if she was just a daughter watching her mother die, trying to figure out how to let her children say goodbye? What would you do? Marcus asked. Jordan sighed. I'd probably make the same mistakes you're making right now. But I've learned some things over the years. Things that might help you and Isabella find a different path. What kind of things? The kind of things that require courage. The kind that mean putting your children's needs ahead of your own fear. The kind that might mean doing something no divorced couple has ever done before. Marcus felt a tiny spark of hope for the first time in weeks. Will you help me? Marcus, Jordan said, I'll do whatever it takes. You're like family to me. Sophia and Diego are like my grandchildren. If there's a way to keep this family together, all of you, we're going to find it. After they hung up, Marcus sat in his quiet apartment for a long time. Outside, the first snow of February had started to fall. He thought about Sophia learning to make tamales from her grandmother, Elena. He thought about Diego practicing Spanish guitar with the woman who had taught Isabella to cook. Maybe Jordan was right. Maybe the answer wasn't fighting against Isabella. Maybe the answer was fighting for all of them. He picked up his phone and dialed his lawyer's number. David, Marcus said when the man answered, I want to try something different. Isabella Rodriguez stared at the phone in her hands. Marcus's name glowed on the screen, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. After 3 rings, it went to voicemail. She didn't listen to the message. It was 11 p.m. in her small rental house in Lincoln Park. The kids were asleep upstairs. Sophia in her pink bedroom, with drawings of food trucks taped to the walls. Diego, in his blue room, surrounded by toy cars and Spanish picture books. Isabella sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by medical papers and legal documents. Bills from her mother's cancer treatment covered every surface. Her laptop was open to an email from her restaurant manager in Los Angeles. We need you here, Bella, the email read. Your mom is asking for you every day. Isabella wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She had been crying so much lately that she was surprised she had any tears left. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister Carmen in Los Angeles. Mom had another bad day. The doctors want to start a new treatment, but she's getting weaker. How soon can you get here? Isabella typed back, still fighting in court. Marcus won't let me take the kids. Can't you come alone? Carmen responded. Isabella looked at the ceiling, where she could hear Diego talking in his sleep. He always did that when he was worried about something. I can't leave them, she typed. They need their mom right now too. But that wasn't the whole truth. The real truth was harder to admit, even to herself. Isabella was afraid that if she left Sophia and Diego with Marcus for months while she cared for her mother, she might lose them forever. She stood up and walked to the refrigerator. Photos covered every inch of the door. Sophia's first day of kindergarten. Diego, learning to ride a bike. The whole family at Navy Pier last summer. Before everything fell apart. In one photo, Marcus was teaching Diego how to hold a baseball bat. They were both laughing. Isabella remembered taking that picture. She remembered how happy they all were that day. When had it all gone so wrong? Isabella opened her laptop and looked at the email from her restaurant manager again. Cafe Elena, named after her mother, was struggling without her. Isabella had built that restaurant from nothing, just like Marcus had built Chef Connect. But while Marcus's business could run itself now, Isabella's restaurant needed her hands in the kitchen, her voice calling out orders, her heart in every dish. She clicked on another email. This one was from the bank. The second mortgage she had taken on the Los Angeles house to pay for her mother's treatment was behind by 2 months. Everything was falling apart. Isabella's phone rang again. This time it was her mother calling from the hospital in Los Angeles. Misha. Elena's weak voice came through the speaker. How are my grandbabies? Isabella tried to sound cheerful. They're good, Mama, sleeping now. Sophia made you a drawing today. A picture of you teaching her how to make mole. I miss them so much, Elena whispered. I dream about Sophia's little hands helping me in the kitchen, and Diego's laugh when I play guitar for him. Isabella's heart broke a little more. I'm trying to bring them to see you, Mama, but it's complicated. Is Marcus still being difficult? Isabella sighed. He thinks I'm trying to steal the children from him. He doesn't understand that you need us. Do you think he would understand if you explained it differently? Elena asked. Your father and I, we had our problems too. But when my mother was dying, your father helped me move to Mexico for 3 months to care for her. Sometimes people can surprise you. Marcus isn't Papa, Isabella said. Marcus thinks everything can be solved with money or lawyers or business deals. Maybe, Elena said softly. Or maybe he's just scared. Fear makes people do strange things. After her mother hung up, Isabella walked upstairs to check on the children. Sophia was curled up with her stuffed elephant, the one her grandmother Elena had sent for her 7th birthday. Diego had kicked off his covers and was sprawled across his bed like a starfish. Isabella tucked Diego back under his blanket and kissed his forehead. He smelled like the strawberry shampoo she used to wash his hair after bath time. She sat on the edge of Sophia's bed and smoothed her daughter's dark hair. Sophia looked so much like Elena when she was young. The same serious expression even in sleep. The same stubborn chin. Mama? Sophia's eyes opened. Are you crying again? Isabella tried to smile. Just a little, baby, go back to sleep. Are you and Papa going to stop fighting soon? The question hit Isabella like a slap. She thought she and Marcus had been good about not arguing in front of the children. But kids notice everything. We're trying, Sophia. We both love you and Diego very much. I know, Sophia said. But why can't you love each other anymore? Isabella didn't know how to answer that. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that sometimes love isn't enough? That sometimes 2 people can love each other and still hurt each other every day? Sometimes grown-ups have problems that are hard to fix. Isabella said finally, like when my toy broke and Papa couldn't fix it, so we had to buy a new one. Something like that. Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Mama, I think Papa misses you. Yesterday when he picked us up, he looked sad when he saw that you cut your hair. Isabella touched her hair self-consciously. She had cut it short last week, tired of spending time on styling when everything else in her life was chaos. Papa notices things about you, Sophia continued. Like when you wear the earrings Abuela gave you. His eyes get soft. Go to sleep, baby, Isabella whispered. But her mind was spinning. Back downstairs, Isabella looked at her phone again. Marcus had called 3 more times. She finally listened his voicemail. Isabella, it's me. I know you don't want to talk to me, but I've been thinking about what you said in court today. About your mother. I want to find a way to help. Can we please just talk? Not with lawyers. Just us. Isabella stared at the phone. In all their months of fighting, Marcus had never said he wanted to help. He had only talked about his rights as a father and what was fair for him. She looked at the pile of medical bills on her table, at the emails from Los Angeles, at the photo on the refrigerator of their family when they were happy. Maybe Elena was right. Maybe fear was making them both do strange things. Maybe it was time to stop fighting against each other and start fighting for their children. Isabella picked up her phone and dialed Marcus's number. He answered on the first ring. Isabella? Marcus, she said, her voice shaking. We need to talk. Back in the present, Judge Hernandez sat in her private chambers during the 30-minute recess. The room was lined with law books and family photos. On her desk sat a cup of cold coffee and a thick file marked confidential sealed records. She opened the file carefully. Inside were documents she hadn't looked at in years. Papers that told the story of one of the most unusual divorce cases in Cook County history. Her assistant, Maria Santos, knocked on the door. Judge, the reporters are asking questions about Mr. Jordan. Should I tell them anything? Tell them they'll have to wait like everyone else, Judge Hernandez said without looking up from the file. And Maria? Call security. When we go back into session, I don't want any interruptions. Maria nodded and closed the door. Judge Hernandez was alone with her memories and a 28-year-old secret. She had been 27 years old in 1995, fresh out of law school, and working as a clerk for Judge William Murphy. Back then, she was just Patricia Gonzalez, a young Latina lawyer trying to prove herself in a courthouse full of old white men. The Jordan case had come through on a busy Tuesday morning. At first, it looked like any other celebrity divorce. Famous athlete, messy split, lots of money to divide. But as Patricia read through the initial filings, she realized this case was different. Michael Jordan and his wife Carmen Williams Jordan weren't fighting over money. They weren't screaming about who got the house or the cars. Instead, they were working together to solve an impossible problem: how to divorce while keeping their children's lives stable. Patricia remembered typing the unusual custody agreement. She had never seen anything like it before. Most divorced parents split time with their children. Mom gets weekends, dad gets weekdays. Or the kids go back and forth between two houses, carrying backpacks full of clothes and homework. But Jordan and Carmen had created something completely different. Judge Hernandez opened her laptop and pulled up the current Chen Rodriguez case file. She read through the arguments from both sides. Marcus wanting to keep his children in Chicago. Isabella needing to care for her dying mother in Los Angeles. Two good parents with impossible choices. Just like Jordan and Carmen 28 years ago. There was a soft knock on her door. "Come in," she called. David Walsh, Marcus's lawyer, stepped inside. Behind him came Sarah Mills, Isabella's attorney. "Your Honor," Walsh said, "we need to understand what's happening here. What does Michael Jordan's old divorce have to do with our case?" Judge Hernandez gestured for them to sit down. "Mr. Walsh, Ms. Mills, I'm going to share something with you that has been sealed for nearly 3 decades. But first, I need your word that you'll discuss this with your clients before deciding how to proceed." Both lawyers nodded. In 1995, Michael Jordan and Carmen Williams Jordan created a custody arrangement that revolutionized how we think about divorced families. They called it the Home Court Advantage Plan. Sarah Mills leaned forward. "What kind of plan?" "Instead of the children moving between 2 homes, the parents moved between 1 home. The family house remained constant. The children kept their rooms, their schools, their friends, their stability. But the parents took turns living there." Walsh frowned. "That's highly unusual. How did it work practically?" "Jordan kept his downtown apartment. Carmen had her own place in Evanston. When it was Jordan's week with the children, he lived in the family home. When it was Carmen's week, she lived there. The children never had to pack a bag." Mills was writing notes quickly. "What about boundaries? Privacy? How did they handle new relationships?" "They set strict rules. No overnight guests during parenting time. All major decisions had to be made together. They shared household expenses equally. And most importantly, they attended family counseling every month to work through problems." Judge Hernandez closed the file and looked at both lawyers. This arrangement worked so well that Jordan and Carmen eventually remarried 5 years later. They realized their problem wasn't that they couldn't live together. Their problem was that they had stopped being partners. Walsh sat back in his chair. "Judge, this is fascinating, but our clients can barely be in the same room together. How could they possibly share a house?" That's exactly what Judge Murphy asked in 1995. But sometimes the most difficult solutions are the ones that work best. Sarah Mills looked confused. "Your Honor, why was this arrangement sealed?" "It sounds like something that could help other families. Because Jordan and Carmen were worried about media attention. They wanted to protect their children's privacy. And frankly, the arrangement was so unusual that other judges weren't sure it would hold up on appeal." Judge Hernandez stood and walked to her window. She could see the courthouse steps below, where reporters were gathering despite the snow. But it did hold up. For 5 years, those children had the stability they needed while their parents learned how to be a family again. Not as husband and wife at first, but as true co-parents. She turned back to the lawyers. "Your clients are facing a similar situation. Mr. Chen wants his children to stay in Chicago. Miss Rodriguez needs to care for her mother in Los Angeles. Traditional custody arrangements won't work for either of them." Walsh was shaking his head. "Judge, with respect, Marcus and Isabella are nowhere near ready for something like this. They're still fighting over basic visitation schedules." "Mr. Walsh," Judge Hernandez said firmly, "sometimes people need to be pushed towards solutions they would never consider on their own. Sometimes a judge has to take a risk." Mills looked up from her notes. "What exactly are you proposing, Your Honor?" "I'm proposing that we ask Mr. Jordan to explain his arrangement to your clients. I'm proposing that Marcus Chen and Isabella Rodriguez consider adapting the Home Court Advantage Plan for their unique situation." Both lawyers started talking at once. Judge Hernandez held up her hand. "I know it sounds impossible, but consider this. Isabella needs to be in Los Angeles for her mother's final months. Marcus wants to maintain his relationship with his children. What if they could do both? She walked back to her desk and picked up the sealed file. What if Marcus and Isabella bought a house in Los Angeles? Not for one of them, but for Sofia and Diego. What if they took turns living there while Isabella's mother needs care? The children could maintain relationships with both parents and with their dying grandmother. Walsh was quiet for a long moment. And after Isabella's mother passes away, then they reassess. Maybe they return to Chicago with a new understanding of how to co-parent. Maybe they decide the arrangement works so well they want to continue it. The point is, they figure it out together instead of fighting each other in court. Mills closed her notebook. Your Honor, this is either brilliant or completely crazy. Judge Hernandez smiled. In my experience, the best solutions usually seem a little crazy at first. She looked at her watch. The recess was almost over. I want you both to talk to your clients during the break. Explain what Mr. Jordan did. Ask them if they're willing to listen to his story with open minds. As the lawyers stood to leave, Judge Hernandez added, and remember, we're not just making legal decisions here, we're trying to save a family. After they left, she sat alone in her chambers for a few more minutes. Through her window, she could see families walking through the snow, children laughing and playing. 28 years ago, she had watched Michael Jordan and Carmen Williams create something beautiful out of something broken. Today, she was going to ask him to share that gift with another family in crisis. She hoped Marcus and Isabella were ready to listen. Court was back in session. The packed gallery buzzed with whispers as everyone took their seats. Reporters had their notebooks ready. Camera crews waited outside, hoping to catch glimpses of the most famous athlete in Chicago history. Judge Hernandez returned to the bench with the sealed file in her hands. Marcus and Isabella sat at their separate tables, both looking nervous. Their lawyers had spent the break explaining the mysterious home court advantage plan, but neither parent fully understood what it meant. Michael Jordan remained in the back row, his hands folded in his lap. He looked like a man preparing to share his most private memories with a room full of strangers. Mr. Jordan, Judge Hernandez said, her voice carrying across the silent courtroom, would you please come forward and take the witness stand? Jordan stood slowly. Every eye in the room followed him as he walked down the center aisle. His black suit was simple, but his presence filled the courtroom. Even at 61, he moved with the grace of the athlete who had dominated basketball for decades. He placed his right hand on the Bible and raised his left hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Asked the court clerk. I do, Jordan said quietly. Judge Hernandez waited for him to sit down. Mr. Jordan, I'm going to ask you to share some very personal information with this court. Information that has been sealed for 28 years. Are you willing to do that to help this family? Jordan looked toward Marcus and Isabella. Marcus gave him an encouraging nod. Isabella watched him with curious, hopeful eyes. Yes, Your Honor, Jordan said. If it might help Marcus and Isabella find a way forward, I'll tell you everything. Thank you. Let's start at the beginning. In 1995, you were going through a divorce from your first wife, Carmen Williams Jordan. Can you tell us about that situation? Jordan took a deep breath. Carmen and I married in 1993. She was a brilliant lawyer and I was Michael Jordan, the most famous basketball player in the world, but not necessarily the best husband. A few people in the gallery chuckled softly. We had 2 children together, Michael Jr., who was 3, and Jasmine, who was 18 months old. Jordan's voice grew softer when he mentioned the children. When Carmen and I realized our marriage wasn't working, we both panicked, not about losing each other, but about what divorce would do to our babies. Isabella leaned forward, listening intently. Carmen had seen her parents' ugly divorce when she was young. She moved between houses every week, never feeling settled anywhere. I grew up without my father around much, and I promised myself my children would never feel abandoned the way I did. Judge Hernandez nodded. So you decided to create an alternative arrangement? We tried regular custody first. Carmen took the kids Monday through Wednesday. I had them Thursday through Sunday. But after just 2 weeks, we could see it wasn't working. Jordan paused, his voice catching slightly. Jasmine cried every time we moved her from house to house. Michael Jr. started asking why he had to pack his toys every few days. Carmen's house had different rules than mine. The kids were confused and scared. Marcus was writing notes, his face serious. Isabella had tears in her eyes. That's when Carmen came up with the idea. Jordan continued. She said, "What if we move and the kids stay put?" At first I thought she was crazy, but the more we talked about it, the more it made sense. "Can you explain how it worked practically?" Judge Hernandez asked. Jordan settled back in his chair, his voice growing stronger as he remembered. "We kept the family house in Highland Park, big enough for all of us, with the kids' bedrooms, their playroom, their toys. Carmen and I each got smaller apartments. When it was my week with the children, I lived in the family house. When it was Carmen's week, she lived there, and I stayed downtown." He looked directly at Marcus and Isabella. The children never packed a bag. They never wondered which house they were going to that night. Their friends always knew where to find them. Their bedtime routines never changed. Sarah Mills, Isabella's lawyer, raised her hand. "Mr. Jordan, how did you handle practical issues? Groceries, bills, personal space." "We had rules," Jordan said. "Lots of rules. We split all household expenses 50-50. We kept separate bedrooms, and neither of us could have overnight guests during our parenting weeks. We shared one car, kept at the house for school pickups and activities." He smiled slightly. "We had a calendar on the refrigerator. Red weeks were mine, blue weeks were Carmen's. We switched every Sunday at 6 p.m. The kids helped us color in the calendar each month." Walsh, Marcus's lawyer, looks skeptical. "Mr. Jordan, that sounds incredibly difficult. How did you handle disagreements about parenting decisions?" Jordan's expression grew serious. "We fought a lot. Carmen wanted organic everything. I thought she was being too strict about TV time. She hated that I let the kids eat ice cream for breakfast on Saturdays. I thought her bedtime rules were too rigid." The courtroom was completely silent, hanging on every word. "But here's what we learned," Jordan continued. "When you're sharing the same house, sharing the same daily responsibilities, you can't just walk away from disagreements. You have to work them out. You have to compromise. You have to remember that you're on the same team." Isabella wiped her eyes with a tissue. This was exactly what she and Marcus had lost. The ability to be on the same team. "We went to family counseling every month," Jordan said. "Not marriage counseling. We knew that was over. Family counseling, learning how to be divorced parents who still acted like partners when it came to our children." Judge Hernandez leaned forward. "Mr. Jordan, this arrangement lasted for 5 years. How did it end?" Jordan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "It ended when Carmen and I realized we had fallen in love again. Not the crazy, passionate love we had when we first got married. Deeper than that. We had learned to respect each other, to trust each other, to work together toward the same goals." The courtroom gasped. Even the reporters stopped writing. "We remarried in 2000, Jordan said, looking up at the packed gallery. "We've been married for 24 years now. Our children are adults with families of their own. And they tell us all the time that those 5 years when we were divorced taught them what real partnership looks like." Marcus stared at Jordan in shock. He had known Jordan for 26 years and had never heard this story. "The home court advantage plan didn't just save our children from the trauma of divorce," Jordan continued. "It saved our family. It taught us that love isn't just about feelings. Love is about showing up every day and doing the work even when it's hard." He looked directly at Marcus and Isabella. "Especially when it's hard." Judge Hernandez gave him a moment before asking her final question. "Mr. Jordan, do you think this arrangement could work for other families? Families facing different challenges than you and Carmen faced?" Jordan considered the question carefully.
Every family is different.
"But the principles are the same. Put your children's needs first. Work together instead of against each other. And remember that being divorced doesn't mean you stop being a family. It just means you have to figure out how to be a different kind of family." He stood up from the witness stand. "Your Honor, Marcus is like a son to me. I've watched him build an amazing business and become a wonderful father. Isabella is a remarkable woman who loves her children deeply. If they're willing to try something different, something that puts Sophia and Diego first, I believe they can find their way through this." The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the snow hitting the windows. Judge Hernandez looked at Marcus and Isabella. "We're going to take another recess. I want both of you to think very carefully about what you've just heard. When we return, I want to hear from you directly, not your lawyers. You. As people began to file out for the break, Marcus and Isabella found themselves walking toward each other for the first time in months. They had a lot to talk about. Marcus and Isabella stood in the courthouse hallway, surrounded by the noise of lawyers and reporters, but they might as well have been alone. For the first time in 8 months, they were looking directly at each other without anger. I had no idea, Marcus said quietly. MJ never told me any of that. Isabella clutched her purse strap tightly. The way he talked about his children, about putting them first even when it hurt. That's what I want for Sophia and Diego. They found a quiet corner near a window overlooking the snowy courthouse steps. Isabella sat on a wooden bench. Marcus remained standing, his hands in his pockets. Isabella, he said, I owe you an apology. I've been so focused on keeping the kids in Chicago that I forgot about your mother, about what you're going through. Isabella looked up at him, surprised. What do you mean? Elena is dying, Marcus said, his voice breaking slightly. You're watching your mother die, and instead of helping you, I've been fighting you. That's not the man I want to be. Tears started flowing down Isabella's cheeks again. I'm so scared, Marcus. I'm scared she's gonna die before Sophia and Diego really get to know her. Before they understand where they come from. Marcus sat down on the bench, leaving space between them but close enough to talk softly. Tell me about the doctors, he said. What exactly did they say? Isabella took a shaky breath. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. They caught it too late. The oncologist in LA said maybe 6 months, probably less. She's already so weak, Marcus. Last week she couldn't even hold Diego on her lap to read him a story. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He had always liked Elena Rodriguez. She was the one who taught Isabella to cook, who passed down the family recipes that made Isabella famous. Elena had been kind to him when he was just a struggling kid trying to impress her daughter. What does she need? Marcus asked. What kind of care? Chemotherapy, 3 times a week. Physical therapy. Someone to drive her to appointments because she can't do it alone anymore. My sister Carmen helps, but she has her own family. And Mama keeps asking for Sophia and Diego. She wants to teach Sophia the family mold recipe before... Isabella couldn't finish the sentence. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, thinking, what if we tried what MJ described? What if he made it work for our situation? Isabella looked at him with surprise. You would consider moving to Los Angeles? Not moving, Marcus said carefully. What if we bought a house there? Not for you, not for me, but for the kids. A place where they could spend time with their grandmother while she needs us. We could take turns being there with them. Isabella stared at him. You would do that? You would leave Chicago for months? Marcus nodded. My business is all online now. I can work from anywhere. The question is, could we actually live in the same house? Take turns the way MJ and Carmen did? Isabella thought about it. We have to have rules. Like Jordan said, clear boundaries about everything. What kind of rules? Isabella surprised herself by actually considering the details. Separate bedrooms, obviously. No overnight guests. We'd have to agree on schedules for the kids. Bedtimes. Screen time. Homework rules. What about your restaurant in LA? Could you run it if you were only there part-time? I've been thinking about that, Isabella said. I could promote my sous chef to head chef. Train her to run things when I'm not there. It might actually work better than me trying to manage everything from Chicago while fighting you in court. Marcus leaned back against the wall. This is crazy. We can barely have a conversation without lawyers present, and we're talking about sharing a house. It is crazy, Isabella agreed. But maybe Jordan is right. Maybe putting Sophia and Diego first means doing something that seems impossible. She looked at Marcus seriously. But I need to know you're not just saying this to win in court. I need to know you really understand why this matters. Marcus met her eyes. Isabella, I've been thinking about what Sophia said to me last week. She asked why I missed her school play, when I was supposed to be there. I told her I had an important business meeting. And she said, Papa, when I grow up and have kids, I'm going to make sure they know they're more important than any meeting. She's 8 years old, and she already understands something I forgot. Isabella felt her heart soften toward him for the first time in months. I want to be the father Sophia and Diego deserve. Marcus continued, and I want them to know their grandmother before it's too late. If that means learning how to be your partner again, not your husband, but your partner in raising them, then I'm willing to try. It would be hard, Isabella warned. Seeing each other every day, coordinating everything. We'd probably fight about discipline and rules and whose turn it is to do laundry. Marcus almost smiled. We used to fight about laundry when we were married. At least now we'd have a reason. Isabella laughed despite her tears. It was the first time Marcus had heard her laugh in almost a year. There's something else, she said. If we do this, if we try Jordan's plan, we have to promise something. What? We have to promise that we'll go to counseling. Family counseling. Like Jordan said, not to get back together, but to learn how to be good divorced parents. To learn how to put Sophia and Diego first, even when we want to strangle each other. Marcus nodded. Deal. But I have one condition too. What? If this works, if we can actually pull this off, you have to teach me how to make Elena's tamales. Sophia keeps asking me to make them, and I have no idea where to start. Isabella smiled through her tears. She made me promise to teach Sophia before she dies. Maybe we could all learn together. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the snow fall outside the courthouse windows. Other families walked by in the hallway, dealing with their own legal problems and life changes. Are we really going to do this? Isabella asked. I think we have to try, Marcus said. For them, for Sophia and Diego, and for Elena. Isabella stood up and smoothed her dress. Then let's go back in there and tell the judge we're willing to try something crazy. Marcus stood too. Just so we're clear, this doesn't mean we're getting back together romantically. Absolutely not, Isabella said firmly. This is about co-parenting, about being a family in a different way. Good, Marcus said. Because I have no idea how to be a husband. But maybe I can learn how to be a real partner. They walked back toward the courtroom together, not holding hands, not touching, but moving in the same direction for the first time in months. Behind them, through the courthouse window, Chicago continued to get covered in snow. Ahead of them, Judge Hernaj was waiting to hear their decision. And somewhere in Los Angeles, Elena Rodriguez was hoping to see her grandchildren one more time. Court was back in session. The gallery was even more packed than before, with people standing in the back because all the seats were taken. Word had spread through the courthouse about Michael Jordan's testimony, and everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Judge Hernandez looked at Marcus and Isabella, who were now sitting closer to each other at their separate tables. Their lawyers had pushed the tables together slightly during the break. Mr. Chen, Miss Rodriguez, the judge said, I asked to hear from you directly. Not your attorneys, but from you as parents. Who would like to speak first? Isabella raised her hand slightly. I would, Your Honor. She stood up slowly, smoothing her navy dress. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady when she spoke. Your Honor, I want to start by saying something I should have said months ago. Marcus is a good father. He loves Sophia and Diego with all his heart. I never should have made him feel like I was trying to take that away from him. Marcus looked surprised. In all their court appearances, Isabella had never said anything positive about him. The truth is, Isabella continued, I've been so scared and so angry that I forgot we used to be on the same team. Before we were husband and wife, we were friends. Before we were business partners, we were two people who wanted to build something beautiful together. She took a deep breath and looked around the courtroom. I want to tell you about my mother, Elena Rodriguez. She's 73 years old, and she's dying of pancreatic cancer. But that's not what defines her. What defines her is how she taught me to cook when I was 5 years old, standing on a step stool in our tiny kitchen in East LA. Isabella's voice grew stronger as she talked about her mother. Elena worked 3 jobs to put me through culinary school. She cleaned offices at night, worked in a restaurant kitchen during the day, and took care of other people's children on weekends. She never missed one of my school events, even when she was exhausted. The courtroom was completely silent. Even the reporters had stopped writing to listen. When I opened my first restaurant, Mama was the first customer. She ordered the mole, tasted it, and started crying. Not because it was bad, but because I had finally learned to make it the way she taught me, the way her mother taught her, the way her grandmother taught her. Mother. Isabella wiped her eyes but kept talking. Sophia is 8 years old, and she already knows how to make tortillas from scratch. Diego is 6, and he can play 3 songs on guitar because his abuela teaches him every Sunday. These aren't just recipes and songs. They're our family's history, our culture, our love. Judge Hernandez nodded encouragingly. The doctors in Los Angeles say Mama has maybe 4 months left. Maybe less. The chemotherapy makes her so tired she can barely stay awake for an hour at a time. But every time I call her, she asks about Sofia and Diego. She wants to know if Sofia remembered to add cumin to the beans. She wants to know if Diego is practicing his guitar. Isabella looked directly at Marcus. I wasn't trying to take the children away from their father. I was trying to give them time with their grandmother before it's too late. I was trying to help them understand where they come from, who they are. She turned back to the judge. But I also understand Marcus's fear. When my parents got divorced, my father disappeared for 2 years. He was angry and hurt, and he punished my mother by staying away from me and my sister. I saw how that destroyed my mother. I saw how it damaged me. Isabella's voice cracked slightly. I was so afraid that if I took Sofia and Diego to Los Angeles, Marcus would think I was trying to do the same thing to him. So I got defensive. I got angry. I started fighting instead of explaining. Marcus was staring at her, seeing her clearly for the first time in months. Your Honor. Isabella continued. Mr. Jordan's story gives me hope. Hope that Marcus and I can remember how to be partners again. Not romantic partners, but partners in raising our children. Partners in honoring my mother's final months. Partners in building a different kind of family. She looked around the courtroom one more time. I'm not asking this court to force Marcus to move to Los Angeles. I'm asking for the chance to try something new. Something that lets Sofia and Diego spend time with their dying grandmother while keeping their relationship with their father strong. Isabella sat down, her hands still shaking but her face peaceful for the first time in months. Judge Hernandez looked at Marcus. Mr. Chen? Marcus stood up slowly. He had been a successful businessman for 15 years, comfortable speaking to investors and board meetings. But talking about his feelings in a courtroom full of strangers was terrifying. Your Honor, he began, I want to apologize to Isabella. I want to apologize to Sofia and Diego. And I want to apologize to Elena, who isn't here but deserves better from the father of her grandchildren. He looked at Isabella. When we were married, Isabella used to tell me stories about her mother. About how Elena worked so hard to give her daughters opportunities she never had. About how Elena taught Isabella that food isn't just nutrition, it's love made visible. Marcus's voice grew stronger. I forgot those stories when I got scared. When Isabella wanted to move to Los Angeles, all I could think about was losing my children. I couldn't see past my own fear to understand her pain. He walked around the table to stand closer to the judge. Last week, Sofia asked me why I never learned to speak Spanish. She said she wanted to tell me secrets in Abuela's language, but I wouldn't understand them. That broke my heart. Your Honor, my own daughter has a whole part of her identity that I don't share. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear people breathing. I built Chef Connect to help families share meals together. I wanted to make it easier for busy parents to feed their children good food. But somehow, I forgot to share meals with my own family. I forgot that the most important connections happen around the dinner table, not in board meeting. Marcus looked at Jordan in the back row, then back at the judge. Mr. Jordan taught me something today. He taught me that being a father isn't about protecting your rights. It's about protecting your children's happiness. And right now, Sofia and Diego need time with their grandmother more than they need me to win a custody case. He turned to face Isabella directly. I want to try the home court advantage plan. I want to learn how to make tamales with Elena before she dies. I want to help Sofia practice her Spanish. I want Diego to teach me the songs his abuela taught him. Marcus's voice was thick with emotion. Your Honor, I'm asking this court to give us the chance to be a family again. Not the family we used to be, but the family we need to become. A family that puts children first. A family that honors grandmothers and culture and love in all its forms. He sat down next to Isabella's table, closer than they had sat in 8 months. Judge Hernandez looked at both parents for a long moment. The courtroom held its breath. Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Chen. She said finally, "You've both shown remarkable courage today. Courage to admit your mistakes, courage to put your children's needs first, and courage to try something that has never been done in this courtroom before." She opened the sealed file on her desk. "I'm going to approve a modified version of the Home Court Advantage Plan, but I'm going to require some very specific conditions." The gallery leaned forward to hear every word. "We'll discuss the details after one more short recess. But I want both of you to know that you've given me hope. Hope that families can heal, even after they've been broken. Hope that love can take many different forms." As people began to file out for the break, Marcus and Isabella remained seated, both crying quietly. For the first time in months, they were crying tears of hope instead of tears of anger. During the recess, Marcus surprised everyone by walking directly to Isabella's lawyer table. He sat down in the chair next to her, ignoring the shocked looks from their attorneys. "Isabella," he said quietly, "I want to ask you something before the judge comes back." She looked at him with curious eyes, still red from crying. "What? What would Elena want? If she could be here right now, if she could tell us what to do, what would she say?" Isabella thought for a moment, a small smile crossing her face. "She would probably tell us to stop being stubborn and start being smart. She always said the best solutions come when people work together instead of fighting each other." Marcus nodded. "Then let's be smart. Let's work together." When court resumed, the gallery was buzzing with excitement. Judge Hernandez took her seat and looked at the two parents, who were now sitting side by side at Isabella's table. "I see you've made some seating arrangements," the judge said with a slight smile. "Your Honor," Marcus said, standing up, "before you announce your decision, Isabella and I would like to make a proposal to the court." Both lawyers looked alarmed. David Walsh half stood from his chair. "Your Honor, my client hasn't discussed this with me." "Mr. Walsh," Judge Hernandez said firmly, "sit down. I want to hear what Mr. Chen has to say." Marcus took a deep breath. "Your Honor, we've been thinking about Mr. Jordan's plan, and we want to suggest some changes that might work better for our specific situation." Isabella stood up beside him. "We want to propose what we're calling the Elena Plan, named after my mother." Judge Hernandez leaned forward with interest. "Go on." Marcus looked at Isabella, who nodded encouragingly. "We want to buy a house in Los Angeles. Not for Isabella, not for me, but for Sofia and Diego. A place where they can live while Elena needs care. And a place they can always call home in California. For the next 6 months," Isabella continued, "while my mother is receiving treatment, Marcus and I will take turns living in that house with the children. 2 weeks at a time, so the kids have consistency, but we both maintain strong relationships with them." Marcus stepped closer to the judge's bench. "I can run Chef Connect from anywhere. Isabella can manage her Los Angeles restaurant more effectively if she's there part-time instead of trying to control everything from Chicago. But here's the most important part," Isabella said, her voice growing stronger. "We want Sofia and Diego to spend every day possible with their grandmother while she's still with us. We want them to learn her recipes, hear her stories, and understand their heritage." Judge Hernandez was writing notes quickly. "What about Chicago? What about your lives here?" "We keep our Chicago homes too," Marcus said. "After Elena passes away, we reassess everything. Maybe we come back to Chicago with a better understanding of how to co-parent. Maybe we decide the arrangement works so well we want to continue it." Isabella looked around the courtroom. "The point is, we figure it out together. We make decisions based on what's best for Sofia and Diego, not what's easiest for us." David Walsh was shaking his head. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. My client is essentially agreeing to support his ex-wife's relocation while maintaining homes in 2 different states. The financial implications alone—" "Mr. Walsh," Marcus interrupted, "money isn't the issue here. Elena Rodriguez is dying. My children deserve to know their grandmother. If that means buying a house in Los Angeles and flying back and forth for 6 months, then that's what we'll do." Sarah Mills, Isabella's attorney, stood up. "Your Honor, while I admire my client's desire to cooperate, this arrangement seems complicated and expensive. What guarantees do we have that Mr. Chen won't use this time to build a case for keeping the children in California permanently?" Isabella turned to her lawyer. "Sarah, I appreciate your concern, but Marcus and I aren't fighting each other anymore. We're fighting for our children's happiness." Judge Hernandez held up her hand. Let me make sure I understand this proposal. You want to establish a temporary home in Los Angeles for the children, with both parents taking turns providing care? Yes, both parents said at the same time. You want to maintain your Chicago residences as well? Yes, Marcus said. Chicago is where Sophia and Diego were born. It's where their friends are, where their schools are. We don't want to cut those ties. And you're both willing to attend family counseling to work through the inevitable conflicts that will arise? Isabella nodded. We've already researched therapists who specialize in divorced co-parenting. Dr. Maria Gonzalez in Los Angeles comes highly recommended. Judge Hernandez looked at Michael Jordan in the back row. Mr. Jordan, you've been listening to this proposal. Do you think it could work? Jordan stood up. Your Honor, what Marcus and Isabella are proposing is actually more ambitious than what Carmen and I did. They're talking about maintaining homes in 2 states, coordinating schedules across time zones, and doing all of this while dealing with a family medical crisis. He paused, looking at his protege with pride. But if any 2 people can make this work, it's them. Marcus has the business skills to handle the logistics. Isabella has the emotional intelligence to keep everyone focused on what matters. And they both love their children enough to try something completely crazy. The courtroom was silent except for the soft scratching of reporters' pens. There's one more thing, Marcus said, looking directly at Judge Hernandez. Isabella and I want to make a promise to this court. If this arrangement doesn't work, if we find ourselves fighting again or putting our own needs ahead of Sophia and Diego's, we'll come back here immediately and ask for a traditional custody arrangement. Isabella nodded. We don't want to drag this out if it's not working, but we believe it will work because we're finally on the same side. Judge Hernandez was quiet for a long moment, reading through her notes. The gallery held its breath. Mr. Chen, Miss Rodriguez, she said finally, what you're proposing is unprecedented in this courtroom. It's complicated, expensive, and requires a level of cooperation that most divorced couples never achieve. Marcus and Isabella exchanged nervous glances. However, the judge continued, it's also the most child-focused custody proposal I've ever heard. You're not asking this court to decide who wins and who loses. You're asking for permission to put your children's needs first, even when it's difficult for you. She closed her file and looked at both parents. I'm going to approve the Elena plan with some modifications and strict requirements. The courtroom erupted in whispers and gasps. Isabella grabbed Marcus's hand without thinking, then quickly let go, both of them blushing slightly. We'll discuss the specific terms after a brief recess, Judge Hernandez said. But I want both of you to know that you've shown remarkable maturity and courage today. Elena Rodriguez would be proud of both of you. As the judge left the bench, Marcus and Isabella stood together, not sure whether to hug or shake hands or just cry some more. Behind them, Michael Jordan was smiling broadly, proud of the young man he had mentored in the family that was learning to heal itself. Outside, the Chicago snow was still falling, but inside the courtroom, something beautiful was beginning to bloom. Judge Hernandez sat in her chambers during the brief recess, staring at the papers spread across her desk. In 15 years on the bench, she had never faced a decision quite like this one. The Elena plan was unprecedented, complicated, and potentially revolutionary. Her assistant Maria knocked on the door. Judge, there are reporters outside asking for a statement. The Chico Tribune wants to know if you're really going to approve this arrangement. Tell them they'll have to wait for my official ruling, Judge Hernandez said without looking up. And Maria? Call Chief Judge Williams. I need to discuss this case with him before I proceed. After Maria left, Judge Hernandez walked to her window. The snow was falling heavier now, covering the courthouse steps where protesters and supporters had gathered. Signs reading "Families First" and "Innovative Justice" bobbed in the crowd. Her phone rang. Patricia, this is Bill Williams. Maria said you needed to speak with me urgent. Chief Judge Williams had been her mentor when she first joined the bench. He was 72 years old, wise, and one of the most respected judges in Illinois. Bill, I need advice on a custody case. It's the Chen Rodriguez matter. Have you been following it? The one with Michael Jordan? Half the courthouse is talking about it. What's the issue? Judge Hernandez took a deep breath. The parents want to try something that's never been done here. They want to establish homes in 2 different states, take turns living with their children, and coordinate all of this around the grandmother's cancer treatment. Chief Judge Williams was quiet for a moment. "Tell me more." She explained the Elena plan in detail, including Marcus and Isabella's financial commitments, their counseling requirements, their promise to return to court if the arrangement failed. "Patricia," he said when she finished, "what does your gut tell you?" "My gut says this could work. These parents have moved past fighting each other and started fighting for their children. But my legal brain is worried about setting a precedent that other judges might not understand." "What kind of precedent?" Judge Hernandez sat down at her desk. "If I approve this, other divorced parents might demand similar arrangements. Not everyone can afford homes in multiple states. Not everyone has the flexibility to work from anywhere." "True," Chief Judge Williams said, "but not every case involves a dying grandmother and two parents willing to sacrifice their own convenience for their children's well-being." She picked up a family photo from her desk. Her own children, now grown, smiled back at her. "Bill, I keep thinking about my own childhood. My parents divorced when I was 10. I spent every other weekend with my father, 2 weeks in the summer, and alternating holidays. I never felt settled anywhere." "Did that influence your decision to become a family court judge?" "Absolutely. I wanted to help families find better solutions than the one my parents chose. But I've approved hundreds of traditional custody arrangements over the years. They work for most families, but they're not perfect." Chief Judge Williams chuckled softly. "Patricia, some of the best legal precedents started with judges who were willing to try something new. Brown versus Board of Education seemed impossible until someone had the courage to rule on it. This isn't exactly civil rights law, Bill. Isn't it? Isn't this about children's rights to maintain relationships with extended family? About families' rights to create their own solutions instead of accepting cookie-cutter court orders?" Judge Hernandez hadn't thought about it that way. She looked at the Elena plan proposal again, seeing it with fresh eyes. "What if it fails?" she asked. "What if Marcus and Isabella can't make this work, and the children get hurt in the process? What if traditional custody fails? What if we force these children to choose between their father and their dying grandmother? Sometimes the safest choice is actually the riskiest one." After hanging up with Chief Judge Williams, Judge Hernandez called Dr. Sarah Kim, a child psychologist who often testified in her courtroom. "Dr. Kim, I need your professional opinion on a hypothetical custody arrangement." She described the Elena plan in detail, explaining the 2-week rotations, the dual residences, and the temporary nature of the arrangement. Judge Hernandez, Dr. Kim said, "What you're describing sounds like it could be very beneficial for the children, assuming the parents can maintain cooperation. What are the potential risks?" "The main risk is if the parents start fighting again. Children in shared custody arrangements are very sensitive to conflict between their parents. But if Marcus and Isabella can truly work together, this plan addresses several important psychological needs." Dr. Kim's voice grew more animated as she explained. "Children of divorce often struggle with feeling rootless, like they don't fully belong anywhere. The Elena plan gives Sophia and Diego a stable home base, while maintaining relationships with both parents." "What about the cultural element? The children spending time with their grandmother? That's actually crucial for child development. Children who understand their cultural heritage and have strong extended family relationships show better emotional resilience and higher self-esteem. For Sophia and Diego to lose their grandmother without having that connection would be a significant loss." Judge Hernandez made notes as Dr. Kim spoke. "Doctor, if I approve this arrangement, what safeguards would you recommend?" "Mandatory family counseling. Definitely. Monthly check-ins with a child psychologist to monitor the children's adjustment. And a clear plan for returning to traditional custody if the arrangement becomes harmful. All of which Marcus and Isabella have already agreed to. Then professionally, I think this plan has a very good chance of success. These parents have moved beyond their own hurt feelings to focus on their children's needs. That's the most important factor in any custody arrangement." After the call, Judge Hernandez reviewed the legal precedents one more time. She found cases where courts had approved unusual custody arrangements for military families, diplomatic families, and families dealing with serious illnesses. The Elena plan wasn't entirely without precedent. It was just more creative than most. Her desk phone rang again. This time it was her own daughter, calling from California. "Mom, I just saw the news about your case. The one with Michael Jordan and the divorced couple. Jessica, you know I can't discuss pending cases with you." "I know, Mom, but I wanted to tell you something. Remember when you and Dad got divorced? Remember how I had to pack a bag every weekend to go between houses? Judge Hernandez felt her chest tighten. Of course I remember. I always wondered what it would have been like if you and Dad had found a different way. If maybe I could have stayed in one place while you two figured out how to be good divorced parents. Honey, your father and I did the best we could at the time. I know you did. But Mom, if there's a family out there willing to try something better, something that puts the kids first, I think you should let them try. After Jessica hung up, Judge Hernandez sat quietly in her chambers for several more minutes. Through her window, she could see families walking through the snow, children laughing and playing despite the cold. She thought about Sofia and Diego, two children who had done nothing wrong but were caught in the middle of their parents' pain. She thought about Elena Rodriguez, dying in a Los Angeles hospital, hoping to see her grandchildren one more time. She thought about Michael Jordan and Carmen, who had the courage to try something unprecedented 28 years ago and ended up saving their family. Most of all, she thought about Marcus and Isabella, who had walked into her courtroom as enemies and were preparing to leave as partners. Judge Hernandez picked up her pen and began writing her official ruling. Some decisions required careful legal analysis. Others required courage and hope. This decision required both. She was ready to make history. When court resumed, Judge Hernandez had a serious expression on her face. The packed gallery sensed something important was about to happen. Marcus and Isabella sat together at the same table, their hands folded, waiting nervously. Before I announce my decision, Judge Hernandez said, I want to hear from two very important people who haven't spoken yet in this courtroom. She looked toward the back of the room. Sofia and Diego Chen Rodriguez, would you please come forward with your parents? A gasp went through the gallery. Marcus and Isabella looked shocked. Neither had expected their children to be called as witnesses. From the back row, a bailiff escorted two small figures toward the front of the courtroom. Sofia walked confidently, her dark hair in neat braids, wearing a purple dress and black shoes. 8-year-old Sofia looked remarkably calm for someone entering a room full of adults arguing about her future. Diego held the bailiff's hand tightly. At 6 years old, he seemed smaller in the big burium, wearing khaki pants and a blue button-down shirt. His dark eyes were wide as he looked around at all the strangers watching him. Don't worry, Judge Hernandez said gently as the children approached. You're not in trouble. I just want to talk with you for a few minutes. She came down from her bench and knelt to their level, something she rarely did but felt necessary for this conversation. Sofia, Diego, do you know why everyone is here today? Sofia nodded seriously. Mama and Papa are trying to figure out where we should live. And something about Abuela Elena being sick. That's right, Judge Hernandez said. Your parents love you very much, and they want to make sure you're happy and safe. But sometimes grown-ups need help making hard decisions. Diego whispered something to Sofia in Spanish. She whispered back, then looked at the judge. Diego wants to know if we're going to have to choose between Mama and Papa. His friend Tommy had to do that when his parents got divorced, and it made Tommy very sad. Judge Hernandez felt her heart break a little. No, sweetheart. No one is going to make you choose between your parents. They both love you, and you're going to keep living with both of them. Sofia's face brightened with relief. Good, because that would be really hard. Mama makes the best pancakes, but Papa tells the best bedtime stories. The courtroom chuckled softly. The first moment of lightness in days of heavy testimony. Sofia, Judge Hernandez continued, can you tell me about your grandmother, Elena? Sofia's whole face lit up. Abuela Elena is the best cook in the whole world. She's teaching me how to make mole, which is really hard because it has like 20 ingredients. And she tells me stories about when Mama was little and got in trouble for putting too much salt in the beans. What about you, Diego? What's special about your grandmother? Diego was shy, but he stepped closer to the judge. Abuela plays guitar and sings songs in Spanish. She's teaching me Las Mañanitas for Mama's birthday. And she makes the best hot chocolate with cinnamon. He paused, then added quietly, but Mama says Abuela is very sick. Is she going to die? The question hung in the air. Judge Hernandez looked at Marcus and Isabella, who both had tears in their eyes. Diego, she said gently, your grandmother is very sick. The doctors are trying to help her feel better, but she might not get well. Diego's lower lip trembled. I don't want her to die before I learn all the guitar songs. Sophia put her arm around her little brother. That's why we need to go see her, Diego, so we can learn everything before she goes to heaven. Judge Hernandez was amazed by the wisdom coming from these young children. Sophia, what would make you and Diego happiest? If you could have anything you wanted for your family, what would it be? Sophia thought carefully, the way children do when they know their answer matters. I want Mama and Papa to stop being sad all the time, she said finally. I want us to visit Abuela Alumna, so she can teach me the mola recipe before she forgets it. And I want Diego to learn all the guitar songs. She looked at her parents, then back at the judge. But I also want to keep going to my school in Chicago because my teacher, Mrs. Martinez, is teaching us about fractions, and I'm finally understanding them. What about you, Diego? What do you want? Diego was quiet for a moment, then said something that surprised everyone in the courtroom. I want Mama and Papa to be friends again. Like they used to be when we all lived together and they laughed at dinner. Isabella started crying quietly. Marcus reached over and squeezed her hand. They used to laugh? Judge Hernandez asked. All the time, Sophia said. Papa would tell jokes about his work, and Mama would make funny voices when she read us stories. They used to dance in the kitchen while dinner was cooking. Diego nodded enthusiastically. And they used to hug us together, like a family sandwich, with me and Sophia in the middle. Judge Hernandez felt a lump in her throat. These children weren't just dealing with divorce, they were mourning the loss of the happy family they used to have. Sophia, Diego, she said, what if I told you that your parents want to try something new? Something where you could spend time with Abuela Elena in Los Angeles, but also keep your friends in school in Chicago. Both children perked up with interest. Would that mean we could live in both places? Sophia asked. Something like that. You would have a house in Los Angeles where you could be with your grandmother. And you would keep your house in Chicago too. Your parents would take turns staying with you in both places. Diego looked confused. Like when we go on vacation, but longer. A little bit like that. But both places would be your real homes. Sophia was clearly the family negotiator. Would Mama and Papa have to be nice to each other if they're taking turns? They would have to work together to take care of you and Diego. Just like any parents do. Sophia looked at Diego, then at their parents, then back at the judge. Can we try it? If it doesn't work, can we try something else? That's exactly what your parents proposed. To try this new arrangement and see how it works for everyone. Diego tugged on Sophia's sleeve and whispered something in Spanish. She nodded and turned back to the judge. Diego wants to know if we can bring our stuffed animals to both houses. His elephant is very important for sleeping. Judge Hernandez smiled. The first genuine smile she'd had all day. Of course you can bring your stuffed animals. You can bring anything that makes you feel at home. She stood up and looked at Marcus and Isabella. Mr. Chen, Miss Rodriguez, you have two very wise children. They understand what matters most: family, love, and having parents who work together instead of against each other. She turned to address the entire courtroom. Sophia and Diego have reminded us why we're all here. Not to decide who wins and who loses, but to help a family find their way through a difficult time. Judge Hernandez walked back to her bench. Children, you can sit with your parents now. I'm ready to make my official decision. As Sophia and Diego ran to hug both Marcus and Isabella, the courtroom fell silent again. Everyone could see that this family was already beginning to heal. The judge's ruling would just make it official. Judge Hernandez returned to her bench with the sealed file in her hands. Sophia and Diego sat between their parents at the table, Diego clutching a small stuffed elephant he had brought from home. The courtroom was so quiet, you could hear the heating system humming. Before I announce my decision about the Elena plan, Judge Hernandez said, there's one more secret from Mr. Jordan's case that this court needs to understand. A secret that explains why their arrangement worked so well. Michael Jordan shifted uncomfortably in the back row. He had shared so much already, but apparently there was more. Mr. Jordan, the judge continued, would you please stand and tell this court what really happened after you and Carmen divorced? Jordan rose slowly, his face showing he knew what was coming. Your Honor, that's very personal information. So was everything else you've shared today. But this final piece might help Marcus and Isabella understand why the home court advantage plan succeeded. Jordan took a deep breath and looked at Marcus, who was watching him with concern. The truth is, Jordan said, his voice carrying across the silent courtroom. Carmen and I didn't just learn to co-parent during those 5 years. We learned to fall in love again, but not the way we expected. The gallery leaned forward, straining to hear every word. When we first got divorced, we were angry and hurt. We thought love meant never fighting, never disagreeing, never having problems. But living in the same house part-time, sharing the daily work of raising our children, we discovered something different. Isabella was listening intently, her hand resting protectively on Sophia's shoulder. We learned that real love isn't about romance and flowers and perfect moments. Real love is about showing up every day even when it's hard. It's about working together toward the same goals even when you want to strangle each other. Marcus was writing notes, trying to understand what Jordan was telling them. After about 18 months of the arrangement, Carmen and I realized we had stopped thinking of ourselves as divorced people sharing a house. We started thinking of ourselves as partners in raising our children. The anger faded because we were too busy building something together. Judge Hernandez opened the sealed file. "Mr. Jordan, can you tell the court what happened in year 3 of your arrangement?" Jordan's voice grew softer. "Michael Jr. got pneumonia. He was in the hospital for a week. Carmen and I took turns staying with him around the clock. We were both exhausted, both scared, both running on coffee and hope." He paused, remembering. On the 4th night, Carmen fell asleep in the hospital chair next to Michael's bed. I covered her with my jacket and sat down beside her. When she woke up a few hours later, she looked at me and said, "We make a good team." Sophia looked up at her parents with curious eyes. Diego was half asleep against Isabella's arm. That's when we realized we weren't just co-parenting anymore. We were partners. We had learned to trust each other again, to rely on each other, to put our family ahead of our own hurt feelings. The courtroom was completely silent except for the soft sound of reporters typing on their phones. By year 4, we were eating dinner together most nights, even when it wasn't our week. We started going to Michael Jr. and Jasmine's school events together. We planned family vacations together. We weren't romantic yet, but we were connected. Judge Hernandez leaned forward. "And in year 5, Jordan smiled. The first genuine smile he'd shown all day. "In year 5, Carmen asked me if I wanted to try being married again. Not because we missed the romance, but because we had learned how to be real partners. We had learned how to love each other the way our children needed us to." The revelation hit the courtroom like a thunderbolt. Marcus stared at Jordan in amazement. Isabella's mouth fell open. "You remarried?" Marcus asked. "We remarried quietly, with just Michael Jr. and Jasmine as witnesses. That was 24 years ago. We've been happily married ever since, but not because we went back to the way things were. We're happily married because we learned to build something completely new." Judge Hernandez closed the file. The secret that was sealed wasn't just about the custody arrangement. It was about what happened when two people stopped fighting against each other and started fighting for their family. She looked at Marcus and Isabella, who were both staring at Jordan in shock. "This doesn't mean you have to get back together romantically," the judge said firmly. "That's not why I'm sharing this story. I'm sharing it because Jordan and Carmen discovered something important. When you put your children first, when you learn to work together despite your differences, when you show up for each other during the hard times, love can take many different forms." Isabella was crying again, but this time Diego noticed. "Mama, why are you sad?" "I'm not sad, baby," Isabella whispered. "I'm just thinking about how families can heal." Marcus looked at Jordan, then at Isabella, then at his children. "MJ, why didn't you ever tell me any of this?" Jordan sat back down, looking tired but peaceful. "Because you weren't ready to hear it, son. You needed to figure out your own path. Carmen and I can't tell you and Isabella how to love each other or whether to try again. But we can tell you that when you stop fighting each other and start fighting for your children, amazing things can happen." Diego perked up from his sleepy state. "Fighting for us means you protect us?" "That's right, Diego," Jordan said. "It means your parents protect your happiness, your family, your relationship with everyone you love." Sophia looked at her parents with 8-year-old wisdom. "So you and Mama are going to be a team now? Like teammates in soccer?" Marcus and Isabella looked at each other, really looked at each other, for the first time without anger or fear. "We're going to try, Sophia," Marcus said quietly. "We're going to try to be the best teammates your abuela Elena ever saw." Isabella smiled through her tears. And we're gonna learn together. All of us. Judge Hernandez watched this exchange with satisfaction. The secret wasn't that all divorced couples should remarry. The secret was that when parents truly put their children first, they often rediscover what they loved about each other in the first place. Mr. Jordan, she said, thank you for sharing your family's complete story. Your courage in being vulnerable has given this family hope. She picked up her gavel, ready to make her final ruling. Now let's make the Elena plan official. The courtroom held its breath as Judge Hernandez prepared to change this family's life forever. Judge Hernandez stood behind her bench, holding the gavel that would seal this family's fate. The packed courtroom was so silent that even the reporters had stopped typing. Sofia and Diego sat between their parents, both children sensing that something very important was about to happen. In my 15 years as a family court judge, Judge Hernandez began. I have presided over hundreds of custody cases. I have seen families torn apart by anger, greed, and the desire to hurt each other. But today, I have witnessed something remarkable. She looked directly at Marcus and Isabella, who were holding their children's hands. Today, I have seen two parents choose their children's happiness over their own pain. I have seen a family begin to heal itself through courage, cooperation, and love. Marcus squeezed Sofia's hand. Isabella smoothed Diego's hair nervously. This court has carefully considered the Elena plan proposed by Mr. Chen and Ms. Rodriguez. I have consulted with child psychologists, reviewed legal precedents, and most importantly, listened to the voices of Sofia and Diego themselves. Judge Hernandez picked up her official ruling, typed on courthouse letterhead. This case involves unique circumstances that require an innovative solution. Elena Rodriguez is dying of pancreatic cancer. Sofia and Diego Chen Rodriguez deserve the opportunity to know their grandmother and understand their cultural heritage before it's too late. She paused, looking around the courtroom at the faces watching her every word. At the same time, these children deserve to maintain strong relationships with both parents and to keep the stability they have known in Chicago. The judge's voice grew stronger and more confident. Therefore, this court hereby approves the Elena plan with the following specific conditions and requirements. The courtroom erupted in whispers before quickly falling silent again. First, Mr. Chen and Ms. Rodriguez will establish a family residence in Los Angeles, California, to be owned jointly and used exclusively for the care of Sofia and Diego during Elena Rodriguez's illness and treatment. David Walsh was writing frantically, trying to capture every detail of the unprecedented ruling. Second, both parents will maintain their individual residences in Chicago, Illinois, ensuring the children can return to their schools, friends, and established lives after the Los Angeles period concludes. Isabella felt tears of relief starting to flow. This was actually happening. Third, Mr. Chen and Ms. Rodriguez will alternate 2-week periods of residence in the Los Angeles home with Sofia and Diego. This schedule will begin immediately and continue until Elena Rodriguez's passing or until her medical situation no longer requires this arrangement. Judge Hernandez looked at both parents seriously. Fourth, both parents are required to attend family counseling sessions with Dr. Maria Gonzalez in Los Angeles monthly during this arrangement. These sessions will focus on co-parenting skills, conflict resolution, and maintaining healthy boundaries. Marcus nodded, remembering his promise to Isabella about counseling. Fifth, Sofia and Diego will receive monthly check-ins with a child psychologist to ensure their emotional well-being throughout this transition. If at any time these consultations indicate the arrangement is harming the children, this court will immediately review and modify the custody plan. Sofia raised her hand slightly, like she was in school. Judge Hernandez smiled and acknowledged her. Yes, Sofia, Your Honor. What if we like living in both places? What happens after Abuela Elena goes to heaven? The question showed remarkable maturity for an 8-year-old. Judge Hernandez knelt down again to Sofia's level. That's an excellent question, sweetheart. After 6 months or after your grandmother's situation changes, your parents will come back to this courtroom. We'll all talk about how the arrangement is working and decide what's best for your family's future. Diego spoke up quietly. Can we bring my elephant to both houses? Of course you can, the judge said warmly. You can bring anything that makes you feel at home. She stood back up and continued reading her ruling. Sixth, Mr. Chen and Ms. Rodriguez will share all expenses related to the Los Angeles residents equally. They will also share transportation costs for the children's travel between Chicago and Los Angeles. Sarah Mills looked impressed. Her client had achieved something unprecedented. 7th. Both parents agree that if this arrangement becomes unworkable due to conflict or incompatibility, they will immediately return to this court for a traditional custody modification rather than attempting to resolve disputes privately. Judge Hernandez set down her papers and looked at the family before her. Finally, and most importantly, this arrangement is granted because both parents have demonstrated their willingness to put Sofia and Diego's needs above their own convenience, their own anger, and their own fear. This court expects that commitment to continue throughout this arrangement. She picked up her gavel for the final ruling. The Elena plan is hereby approved and will take effect immediately. Mr. Chen will take the first 2-week period in Los Angeles, beginning this weekend. Ms. Rodriguez will follow with her 2-week period immediately after. The gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through the silent courtroom. Court is adjourned. For a moment, nobody moved. Then suddenly Sofia jumped up and hugged both her parents at the same time. Diego followed, creating the family sandwich he had described earlier. The courtroom erupted in applause. Reporters rushed toward the exits to file their stories. Camera crews outside prepared for statements from the attorneys. But in the center of it all, Marcus and Isabella stood with their children, finally breathing freely for the first time in months. Michael Jordan approached the family table, his eyes bright with pride. Marcus, Isabella, I'm proud of both of you. Elena would be proud too. Isabella wiped her eyes. Mr. Jordan, thank you. I don't think we could have found this path without your story. Marcus shook Jordan's hand firmly. MJ, you saved our family. I'll never forget what you did today. Jordan smiled. You too saved your own family. I just showed you that it was possible. Judge Hernandez stepped down from her bench one final time to speak with the family privately. Mr. Chen, Miss Rodriguez, she said, what you've agreed to do is difficult. There will be challenges, conflicts, and moments when you question this decision. But you have something many divorced couples never find, a shared purpose that's bigger than your individual pain. She looked at Sofia and Diego, who were chattering excitedly about having 2 houses and seeing Abuela Elena soon. Your children will remember this day for the rest of their lives. Not because of the legal ruling, but because it's the day their parents chose love over anger, cooperation over conflict, and family over everything else. As the courtroom slowly emptied, Marcus and Isabella found themselves alone with their children for the first time since the proceedings began. Mama, Sofia said, are you and Papa friends again? Isabella looked at Marcus, both of them thinking about Jordan's story, about the long road ahead, about the grandmother waiting in Los Angeles. We're learning how to be friends again, baby, Isabella said. We're learning how to be a team. Marcus knelt down to Diego's level. Diego, are you ready for an adventure? We're gonna have a house in Los Angeles where you can visit Abuela Eleni every day. Diego's face lit up. Can I bring my guitar? The one Abuela gave me? Of course, Marcus said. We're gonna bring everything that makes us a family. Outside, the Chicago snow was still falling, but inside the courthouse, a family was beginning to bloom again. The Elena plan was officially approved. Now came the hardest part, making it work. The small house in Pasadena, California, was filled with the smell of cinnamon and chocolate. In the kitchen, 3 generations of women worked side by side, their hands covered in flour and their hearts full of memories being made. No. Sofia, Mas Canela, Elena Rodriguez said weakly from her wheelchair, watching her granddaughter add cinnamon to the mole sauce. Your great-grandmother always said you can never have too much cinnamon. Sofia nodded seriously, adding another pinch to the bubbling pot. At 8 years old, she had become Elena's most dedicated student, writing down every recipe and story in a purple note. Abuela, Sofia said in careful Spanish, tell me again about when you first came to Los Angeles. Elena smiled, her thin face lighting up despite the exhaustion that came with her treatments. I was white teen, Miga, younger than your mama when she started cooking school. I had 2 suitcases and a recipe book my mother gave me. Isabella stood at the stove, stirring the sauce Sofia was learning to make. She had lost 20 pounds in the past 6 months. The stress of watching her mother fade away taking its toll. But she had also gained something precious. Daily time with Elena that she would treasure forever. "Mama," Isabella said softly, "remember when you taught me this recipe? I was so frustrated because I kept burning the chiles." "You were 11 and thought you knew everything," Elena laughed, then coughed. The sound worried Isabella, but Elena waved away her concern. "Sofia is more patient than you were." From the living room came the sound of Diego's guitar mixed with Marcus's patient voice. "Okay, buddy, try that chord again. Remember what Abuela taught you about keeping your fingers curved?" Marcus had surprised everyone by throwing himself into learning Spanish and guitar during his weeks in Los Angeles. His pronunciation was terrible and his rhythm was worse. But Diego loved having a practice partner. "Papa," Diego called out, "listen to this." He played the first few notes of Las Mañanitas, the Mexican birthday song Elena had been teaching him. Marcus applauded enthusiastically, even though Diego hit several wrong notes. Elena rolled her wheelchair to the doorway between the kitchen and living room. "Diego, that was beautiful, Micho. Play it again for the ladies." Diego beamed and started over, his small fingers moving carefully across the strings. Sofia abandoned her cooking to sing along in Spanish, her clear voice carrying the melody their grandmother had taught them. Isabella felt tears starting again. These moments were exactly why the Elena plan had worked. 6 months ago, her children barely knew their grandmother's language, or songs. Now they were preserving family traditions that went back generations. The front door opened and Isabella's sister Carmen entered with grocery bags. "How are my favorite people today?" she called out. "Tia Carmen." Sofia ran to hug her aunt. "We're making Abuela's mole." And Diego learned a new song. Carmen had been skeptical of the Elena plan at first, worried that 2 divorced people sharing a house would create more drama for her dying mother. Instead, she had watched Marcus and Isabella learn to work together in ways that impressed everyone. "Where's Isabella this week?" Carmen asked, setting groceries on the counter. "She flies back to Chicago tomorrow," Marcus said, joining them in the kitchen. "My 2 weeks start Monday." This had been their rhythm for 6 months. 2 weeks with Isabella, 2 weeks with Marcus, the Kilders staying in the same house while their parents rotated. It hadn't been perfect, but it had worked better than anyone expected. "How was the restaurant today?" Marcus asked. Isabella. "Good," she said, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "The new head chef is handling things well when I'm gone, and the lunch rush was busy, which is always good news." They had learned to talk about work without competing, to share daily decisions without fighting. Monthly counseling sessions with Dr. Gonzalez had helped them navigate conflicts about bedtime routines, screen time limits, and whose turn it was to handle the grocery shopping. There had been difficult moments. In month 2, they had argued so loudly about Diego's homework schedule that Sofia asked if they were getting divorced again. That fight had sent them both to an emergency counseling session and resulted in written agreements about handling disagreements. In month 3, Isabella had gotten food poisoning and couldn't take her scheduled 2 weeks. Marcus had extended his stay without complaint, working 18-hour days to manage Chef Connect remotely while caring for the children and Elena. In month 4, Marcus's business partner had demanded he return to Chicago for crucial investor meetings. Isabella had left her restaurant during its busiest season to cover his 2 weeks, never once complaining about the sacrifice. They had learned to be partners in ways their marriage had never taught them. "Mama," Sofia said, looking up from the stove. "Dr. Gonzalez asked me yesterday if I was sad about you and Papa not living together anymore." Isabella and Marcus exchanged glances. The monthly child psychology sessions had been part of Judge Hernandez's requirements. "What did you tell her?" Isabella asked gently. "I told her that you and Papa do live together, just not at the same time." Sofia stirred the mole thoughtfully. "I told her that some families live differently, but that doesn't make them less happy." Elena reached out to squeeze Sofia's hand. "My wise granddaughter." Diego put down his guitar and climbed onto Marcus's lap. "Papa, when do we go back to the judge lady to tell her if we want to keep living this way?" "Next month, buddy. Do you know what you want to tell her?" Diego considered the question seriously. "I want to tell her that Abuela taught me 6 songs now, and that you learned to make tres leches cake, and that Mama's restaurant in Chicago makes the best enchiladas because she learned from Abuela." Marcus smiled, thinking about how much had changed. He now spoke basic Spanish, could cook 5 traditional Mexican dishes, and had developed a genuine friendship with Elena that enriched his understanding of his children's heritage. Isabella had watched her restaurant thrive under shared management, had seen her children maintain their Chicago friendships through video calls and summer visits, and had gained something she never expected: respect for Marcus as a true co-parent. "Abuela," Sofia said quietly, "are you proud of Mama and Papa for not fighting anymore?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. At 73, facing her final months, she had watched her daughter and son-in-law transform from bitter enemies into genuine partners. "Sí, mija," Elena whispered. "I am very proud. They learned that family is about more than living in the same house. Family is about showing up for each other when it matters most." The kitchen fell into comfortable silence. Everyone focused on their tasks. Sofia continued stirring the mole under Elena's watchful guidance. Diego practiced his guitar softly. Carmen organized groceries. Marcus and Isabella worked side by side, cleaning dishes and preparing dinner. To an outside observer, they might have looked like any normal family preparing a meal together. The reality was more complex and more beautiful. They were a family that had broken apart and learned to rebuild itself in a completely new way. Elena had been given 6 months to live. It had been 6.5 months, and while she was weaker now, she was still here, still teaching, still loving, still watching her grandbabies learn to be proud of where they came from. The Elena plan had worked not because it was perfect, but because 2 people had learned to put their children's needs ahead of their own pain. Next month, they would return to Judge Hernandez to discuss the future. But tonight, they were simply a family sharing dinner, speaking 2 languages, and making memories that would last long after Elena was gone. Sometimes the best solutions don't look like what anyone expected. Sometimes they look like love. Dr. Sarah Kim sat in her office at Northwestern University, staring at the research data spread across her desk. For 6 months, she had been following the Chen Rodriguez family as part of a groundbreaking study on innovative custody arrangements. The results were remarkable. Sofia and Diego's test scores showed lower anxiety levels than children in traditional custody situations. Their academic performance had improved. Most surprisingly, their emotional stability scores were higher than many children from intact families. Dr. Kim picked up her phone and dialed Judge Hernandez's chambers. "Judge, this is Dr. Kim. I wanted to share some preliminary findings from the Elena Plan study." "I'm listening," Judge Hernandez said, settling back in her chair. "The children are thriving. Not just surviving, but actually thriving. Sofia's teacher reports that she's more confident in class. Diego's music teacher says he's never seen a 6-year-old so motivated to practice. Both children speak proudly about their family arrangement to classmates." Judge Hernandez smiled. "And the parents? Marcus and Isabella are showing remarkable growth in co-parenting skills. Their conflict resolution has improved dramatically. They've learned to separate their romantic relationship issues from their parenting partnership." Dr. Kim flipped through her notes. "Judge, I think this case study could change how family courts approach custody nationwide." Across Chicago, family law attorneys were already talking about the Chen Rodriguez case. David Walsh had received dozens of calls from colleagues asking about the Elena Plan. Sarah Mills was invited to speak at 3 different legal conferences about innovative custody solutions. The media attention had been intense but mostly positive. The Chicago Tribune ran a series called Families First: New Models for Divorce. CNN featured the story on their morning show. Even People magazine wrote about the basketball legend who saved a family. But the real impact was happening in courtrooms across the country. In Portland, Oregon, a judge cited the Chen Rodriguez precedent in approving a similar arrangement for a military family. In Dallas, Texas, attorneys proposed a modified version for parents in the entertainment industry who traveled frequently. Michael Jordan had returned to his quiet life, but he received letters daily from divorced parents, thanking him for sharing his story. One letter particularly moved him. "Mr. Jordan, my ex-husband and I were destroying our children with our fighting. After seeing your interview about the Elena Plan, we decided to try something similar. It's been 3 months, and for the first time since our divorce, our kids are happy. Thank you for showing us that love can take different forms." Jordan kept that letter in his office, a reminder that sometimes the most important victories happen off the basketball court. Isabella's restaurant in Los Angeles had become a symbol of the family's success. Food critics praised not just the cuisine, but the story behind it. Café Elena serves more than excellent Mexican food, wrote the LA Times food critic. It serves hope that broken families can rebuild themselves in beautiful new ways. The restaurant's signature dish was Sophia's mole, made from Elena's recipe with Sophia's own modifications. 8-year-old Sophia had become something of a celebrity, featured in Cooking Light magazine as the young chef preserving family traditions. Marcus's business had also grown during the Elena plan period. Chef Connect expanded into Los Angeles, inspired by Marcus's deeper understanding of family food traditions. He hired Elena's recipes as part of a new heritage cuisine feature that connected families with traditional cooking methods. But the most important changes were invisible to the media and researchers. They were in the small moments. Marcus singing Spanish lullabies to Diego at bedtime. Isabella teaching Sofia to negotiate business deals the way Marcus had taught her. Both parents attending family counseling not because a judge required it, but because they wanted to keep growing. Elena Rodriguez had lived longer than anyone expected. Her oncologist attributed it partly to the joy of watching her grandbabies every day, learning her recipes and songs. Sometimes, Dr. Martinez told Elena's family the best medicine is purpose. As autumn approached in Los Angeles, Elena was spending more time in bed. Her voice was weaker, her energy limited to short bursts. But every evening she insisted on dinner together. Isabella or Marcus, Sofia and Diego, sometimes Carmen, gathered around the table sharing food and stories. "Abuela," Sofia said one evening, "will you still be here for my 9th birthday?" Elena took her granddaughter's hand. "Mija, I will always be here. Maybe not in my body, but in every recipe you cook, every song Diego plays, every time you speak Spanish to your children someday." Diego looked confused. "Abuela, where will you go if you're not in your body?" Elena smiled, pointing to Diego's heart, then Sofia's. "I'll be right here, and every time Papa makes tres leches cake the way I taught him, I'll be in the kitchen with you." These conversations were painful but necessary. Dr. Gonzalez had helped the family prepare for Elena's death, teaching them how to talk about grief and memory with young children. Children are more resilient than we think, Dr. Gonzalez had told Marcus and Isabella. But they need honesty and security. They need to know that death is natural, that love continues, and that their family will take care of them no matter what. 1 month before their scheduled return to Judge Hernandez, Marcus and Isabella had a serious conversation about the future. They sat on the back patio of the Los Angeles house while the children played in the yard. "When Elena passes away," Isabella said quietly, "everything changes. The original reason for the Elena plan will be gone." Marcus watched Diego teaching Sofia a new guitar chord. Elena had shown them. "Do you want to go back to traditional custody? Chicago for you, Los Angeles for me. Kids flying back and forth?" Isabella was quiet for a long time. 6 months ago, I would have said yes. I was so angry, so hurt. I wanted my own space, my own life away from you. And now I've watched you learn Spanish lullabies so our children feel connected to their heritage. I've watched you call me at midnight when Diego had nightmares. Not because you couldn't handle it, but because you knew I would want to help. I've watched you become the father our children deserve. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Isabella, you've become the co-parent I never knew I wanted. Not a wife, not a romantic partner, but a true teammate in raising our kids. They looked at each other honestly for the first time in over a year. What if we kept the arrangement? Isabella asked. What if we made it permanent? Not because we have to, but because it works for our family. Marcus smiled. Sophia asked me the same thing yesterday. She said, Papa, why would we change something that makes everyone happy? That evening, they called Judge Hernandez's chambers to request a meeting before their scheduled court date. They had a proposal that would surprise everyone, including themselves. Sometimes the most radical choice is the one that works. The same courtroom where it all began looked different on this October morning. The snow that had covered Chicago 7 months earlier was gone, replaced by golden autumn leaves visible through the tall windows, but the feeling in the room was completely changed. Judge Hernandez sat behind her bench, watching as the Chen Rodriguez family entered together. Marcus and Isabella walked side by side, not as a romantic couple but as true partners. Sofia and Diego followed. both children taller and more confident than they had been in February. The gallery was packed again, but this time with supporters rather than curious onlookers. Dr. Kim sat in the front row with her research files. Michael Jordan had returned, bringing Carmen with him to meet the family that had followed their example. Hila's sister and cousins had flown in from Los Angeles to witness this final hearing. "Your Honor," Marcus said as they approached the bench, "thank you for agreeing to meet with us early. We know this is unusual." Judge Hernandez smiled. "Mr. Chen, after what this family has accomplished, I think we can handle a little more unusual. Please, tell me why you requested this hearing." Isabella stepped forward. "Your Honor, 7 months ago, you approved the Elena plan as a temporary arrangement to allow our children time with their dying grandmother. That temporary arrangement has changed our lives in ways we never expected." Sophia raised her hand politely. Judge Hernandez nodded at her. "Judge Lady," Sophia said, using the same respectful but informal tone she had used months earlier, "we came to ask if we can keep living the way we live now, even after Abuela Elena goes to heaven." The courtroom murmured with surprise. This wasn't what anyone had expected. "Sophia," Judge Hernandez said gently, "can you tell me why you want to keep the current arrangement?" Sophia looked at her parents, then back at the judge with 8-year-old wisdom. "Because it works, Judge Lady. Diego and I get to live in our houses. Not Papa's house or Mama's house. Our houses. And Papa and Mama learned how to be friends again." Diego nodded enthusiastically. "And Papa can make tres leches cake now. And Mama learned how to use Papa's computer programs to help her restaurant." Judge Hernandez looked at Marcus and Isabella with curiosity. "Is this something you've both considered carefully?" Marcus spoke first. "Your Honor, when we started the Elena plan, we thought we were making a temporary sacrifice for Elena's final months. We didn't realize we were learning how to be a real family again." Isabella continued, "We've discovered that our problem was never that we couldn't live together. Our problem was that we stopped being partners and started being competitors." She looked at Marcus with genuine affection. "The Elena plan taught us to work toward the same goals, to support each other during difficult times, and to put Sophia and Diego's needs first in every decision." Judge Hernandez leaned forward with interest. "Ms. Rodriguez, are you saying you want to make this arrangement permanent, even after your mother passes away?" Isabella's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady. "Your Honor, my mother is dying. The doctors say she has maybe 2 more weeks, but during these 7 months she got to watch Sophia learn every family recipe. She got to teach Diego 6 traditional songs. She got to see Marcus and me become the parents she always hoped we would be." Marcus stepped closer to Isabella's side. "Judge Hernandez, we're not asking to remarry. We're not asking for romantic reconciliation. We're asking for permission to continue being partners in raising our children, even after the original reason for the arrangement is gone." The judge looked at Dr. Kim in the gallery. "Dr. Kim, you've been studying this family's progress. What are your professional observations?" Dr. Kim stood up. "Your Honor, in 30 years of child psychology, I've never seen children adapt so successfully to their parents' divorce. Sophia and Diego show remarkably high emotional stability, academic achievement, and social confidence." She consulted her notes. "More importantly, they demonstrate strong cultural identity, close relationships with extended family, a clear understanding that they are loved and prioritized by both parents." Judge Hernandez nodded. "And the parents?" Marcus and Isabella have developed exceptional co-parenting skills. They've learned to communicate effectively, resolve conflicts constructively, and make decisions collaboratively. Their arrangement provides more stability for the children than most traditional custody plans." Michael Jordan stood up from his seat in the gallery. "Your Honor, may I speak?" "Of course, Mr. Jordan." Jordan walked to the front of the courtroom. 7 months ago, I shared my family's story to help Marcus and Isabella find a different path. Today, I want to tell you that they've surpassed what Carmen and I accomplished." He looked at the family with obvious pride. "Carmen and I used our arrangement to rebuild our romantic relationship. Marcus and Isabella have used their arrangement to build something even more important, a true partnership centered entirely on their children's well-being." Carmen Jordan joined her husband at the front of the courtroom. "Your Honor, I've spent time with this family over the past months. Their children are secure, happy, and loved. Their arrangement works because both parents have learned to put family above ego. Judge Hernandez looked around the courtroom at all the supportive faces, then back at the family before her. Mr. Chen, Ms. Rodriguez, what you're proposing is making a temporary emergency arrangement into a permanent lifestyle choice. Are you certain this is what you both want? Marcus and Isabella looked at each other, then at their children, then back at the judge. Your Honor, Isabella said, we want what's best for Sofia and Diego. For 7 months, what's been best is having parents who work together instead of against each other. Marcus added, we want to continue living in both Chicago and Los Angeles. We want Sofia and Diego to grow up understanding their heritage, maintaining their friendships, and knowing that both their parents will always show up for them. Diego tugged on Isabella's dress and whispered something in Spanish. She smiled and whispered back. What did Diego say? Judge Hernandez asked. He said he wants to keep teaching Papa new guitar songs. And he wants to make sure Papa remembers to visit Abuela Elena's grave with flowers every month. The courtroom fell silent as everyone absorbed the weight of that simple request. Judge Hernandez stood up and walked around her bench to stand directly in front of the family. 7 months ago, you came to my courtroom as adversaries fighting over your children. Today, you stand before me as partners asking permission to continue putting your children first. She looked at Sofia and Diego. And you have 2 remarkable children who understand that families can be built in many different ways as long as they're built with love. The judge walked back to her bench and picked up her gavel. This court hereby approves the permanent continuation of the modified Elena plan, with the understanding that both parents may request modifications as the children's needs change over time. The gavel came down with the same decisive crack it had made 7 months earlier. But this time it wasn't ending a family's pain. It was officially recognizing a family's healing. Sofia and Diego cheered and hugged both parents simultaneously. The courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Hernandez wiped away tears as she watched a family that had learned to love each other in an entirely new way. 2 weeks later, Elena Rodriguez passed away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by her daughter, her grandbabies, and the man who had learned to honor her memory by becoming the father her grandchildren deserved. At Elena's funeral, Sofia sang Las Mañanitas in perfect Spanish while Diego played guitar. Marcus and Isabella stood together, not as husband and wife, but as partners in preserving the beautiful legacy Elena had left them. The Elena plan had started as a desperate attempt to save a dying woman's final months with her grandchildren. It had become a blueprint for how broken families could rebuild themselves through love, cooperation, and the revolutionary idea that children's happiness matters more than adult pride. Sometimes the most beautiful endings are really just new beginnings. Sometimes the most broken families can heal in the most unexpected ways. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell us your city or country. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring true stories like this one. We share tales of hope, family, and the power of putting children first. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. Stories like these remind us that love can take many forms, and that sometimes the most radical solution is simply choosing kindness over conflict. Thank you for listening, and remember, every family has the power to write their own beautiful ending.